Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal Bang, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Daria. We have with us Anubhav Gupta, Chief Strategy Officer at APL Apollo Group, joining in. Welcome to the show, Anubhav, and always a pleasure to speak to you. Anubhav, let's start overall with how we've seen COVID impact business. Clearly, a lot of businesses that have come out and said that the second wave has been more severe than the first wave. However, for you, we've seen a fourth quarter which was pretty strong. So, taking all of the current situation into consideration, are you expecting this kind of performance to continue?
Right. So, if we look at the difference between wave 2 and wave 1, right? So, wave 2 came in Q1 of FY22 and wave 1 was in Q1 of FY21, right? So, the main differences are number one, that last year there was complete shutdown in the country, which was announced by the Prime Minister of India. Okay, complete shutdown. Everything was shut from 21st March till 25th of April, right? Everything, all construction sites, factories, etc., etc. Everything was completely shut. And then we saw very strong pent-up demand, almost V-shaped recovery right from month of May, June, and all the companies in respective building material categories, they performed really well, right? Now, when we look at wave 2, right, Q1 of FY22, government has had a lot of learnings, right? So they knew what to be shut, what not to be shut, right? So they didn't shut the factories, they didn't shut the public transportation, right? Movement of goods interstate was permissible, right? In Q1 of FY22 in the second wave. So so nothing was like completely halted, right? In last 2 3 months versus what we saw in Q1 of FY21, right, last year. So the point I'm trying to make is in April, every company had zero sales, almost zero sales, right? But in May of 2021, when the second wave was at peak, factories were operational, right? Like I said, movement of goods was there. There were construction sites were operational, right? So there was some demand. You talk to cement companies, they say that demand was 50-60% of normalized run rate in month of May, right? You talk to other building material companies, they also say demand was 40-50% of the normalized run rate. So that was same for us also, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that the Q1 of FY22 has to be higher than Q1 of FY21, right? Because the country was not under the complete lockdown. So, so the recovery in Q2 will be like, won't be like V-shape what we saw last year, right? It will be like mild recovery. Yes, Q2 has to be better than Q1 because every every company must have operated at like 30, 40, 50% utilization levels. So Q2 would be better than Q1. And now that the wave is fading away, so this gives good visibility for the rest of FY22, right? That being said, government is already afraid of wave 3, right? So if that comes again, there is a disruption. So still, I think the uncertain times are still there. Very difficult to say how FY22 is going to pan out. Assuming there is no wave 3, then I think things will be on track. But if wave 3 comes again in um, uh, August, September, October, November, we don't know yet, right? So we'll see that how it's going to impact the businesses. But I guess, I mean, the money supply will again get impacted if we see the third wave in the current financial year. So as of now, things look good, but yes, wave 3 can be a false point in FY22.
Right. So overall, Anubhav, if we see financial growth in FY21 as well, though the sales volume remained pretty flat,
Yes.
still we saw a EBITDA growth of 42%, profit
Yes.
growth of 51%. The ROCE also improved substantially during this
Yes.
year. Now, clearly, it's an opportunity that we have got. We've converted a crisis situation as well. Is this pent up demand that we've seen, or do you think this is something which we will continue in terms of growth?
So, like you said, that there was flat growth in terms of volume, right? So let's see that why our EBITDA growth was 50% or 40%, fat growth was 50%. because our EBITDA per ton, right? So it's like percentage margin. We look at EBITDA per ton as the measurable. That improved from 3,000 rupees per ton to 4,000 rupees per ton.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the 1,000 rupees per ton journey what we saw.
Hmm.
So there are like 5 factors for this here. Number one is the value addition, right? So although the volume was flat, but our value added portfolio improved from like 50% to 60%,
Hmm.
right, in that particular year, right? And so that added almost 500 rupees per ton EBITDA per ton, right, to our EBITDA spread, right? So from 3,500 came from value addition. Then 100 rupees per ton came from the cost control measures, which we took while the lockdown was there, right? So we worked on the fixed cost and other expenses, right, to rationalize, right? So 100 rupees per ton came from there. Then 100 to 100 rupees per ton is our brand premium, which has improved over the last 2-3 years since we started spending on our brand enhancement. Okay, so the premium on our products is improving slowly, gradually, right? And then factor number 4 would be like some extra premium we are getting for our products because the unorganized sector, okay, the informal sector, the weak players in the organized sector, they vacated a lot of space in FY21 because it was a year of full of disruption, right? So the weaker players, smaller players, they were not able to operate at full efficiency. So that gave us market space, right, to grab their market share, right? So when you see that our volumes were flat, but you look at the industry overall also declined, right, because GDP declined by 8-10%, right? So same way the industry also declined, right, for structural steel tubes. Uh, we having same volume, that means we expanded market share from 40% to 50% last year, right? So when we become dominant player, you get to have like extra margin, right, extra premium, right? And then there was small element of and the fifth factor I like to highlight is the small element of shortage of tubes in India, right? Because the key raw material is HR coil, raw steel, okay, and the steel producers in India, they're diverting volumes outside India because the international prices are better. So that left the domestic market with low supply of steel. Okay, so that means less steel, less pipes in the market, right? So that then also there was like some short-term phenomena where we could take advantage of, right? So these are the main 5 factors that why our margin improves considerably. And out of these 5, 4 are like pretty much sustainable, which is value addition, then the cost control measures, then the brand equity premium, and then the market share gains, right? So these are pretty much stable stable factors, which you will see improvement in the coming years. And
Right.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Right. So, Anubhav, with regards to raw material prices as well, commodity prices are touching the roof right now. So, do we see any negative impact that could probably eat away on the margin front?
So here we work on a pass-through model. I mean, not only us, but you look at the overall tube industry, not only in India, globally, right? When steel is the key material, right, which is forming 80-85% of the total value, right? So, and steel is very volatile commodity, right? It can go 5%, 10% up and down in 2 days time, right? So no business model can sustain if you don't pass it on to your customers, right? 5% swing can hit your margin by 4%, 400 bips at EBITDA level in like less than a week time, right? So no business can sustain this kind of volatility. So the business models have been established globally that the revision in steel prices or the fluctuation in steel prices need to be passed on immediately below the value chain, right? So this model has been there since ages, right? So we have been able to successfully pass it on to our customers, right? And our customers, our distributors, they pass it on to the retailers, right? So that's how this industry trend has been there, not only in India, globally. So I don't see steel prices going up or down should impact our margin because we work on a pass-through model,
right,
on immediate basis.
Right. So if you have to look at the finished product currently, which goes to the retailer, by how much can we expect prices to increase by, say, for the next 3 to 6 months?
Right. So see, for example, on the HR coil prices last year were at 40,000 rupees per ton. Okay, then there is value addition, which is done by APL Apollo Tubes, say of 10,000 rupees per ton. So our selling price becomes 50,000 rupees per ton for our distributors. Then the distributor has his own margin, his own freight. He sells to a retailer, say at 55,000 rupees per ton. Now a retailer will keep his margin, his freight to the fabricator. There will be another 5,000 rupees per ton in the value chain. So fabricator gets pipe at 60,000 rupees per ton. A fabricator does his own value addition, right, which could be 20 to 25,000 rupees per ton. So the end product will be sold at 85,000 rupees per ton. 40,000 rupees per ton HR coil, 85,000 rupees per ton end price. Now 40,000 has become 60,000 today, the HR coil price. Steel prices have gone up by 50%. But when you do pass through, everything remains constant. The end product will go up by 20,000 rupees per ton to 100,000 rupees per ton, right? So 50% increase in HR coil prices does not mean that the finished product has also gone up by 50%.
Correct.
It has gone up by 20-25%. And so that's a building material product. And any building material product you take here in last 1 year, every product has gone up, right? So whether it is paint category, it is tiles category, it is PVC pipe category, right? So cement category, right? So I think 20-25% of price escalation can be absorbed by the market, and you are seeing that's why volumes are not majorly hit as of now.
Right. And overall, with regards to market share gains, we've gone from 40% to 50% right now. In FY22, how much more can we increase that to?
So, see, I mean, market share, how we look at it is that how do we create the new market, right? Because if you look at our growth in the last 10 years, we have been growing at 20-25% volume CAGR every year, right? And the reason is that the structural steel tube industry is very small, it's very nascent, right? So we have to create new market with new products, new launches, new innovation, etc., etc. So as we continue to create new market, and when the market has been created, we get the 100% market share initially for first 2-3 years, right? Because our competition is much behind to catch up with us, right? So it's a question of like what kind of new market we are going to create. If the new market gets created in FY22, FY23, by default, my market share will look higher, will appear higher, more than 50%, right? So I guess we're not much bothered about like 50% market share or 45% or 55%. Our strategy is always how do we create the new market? Because if we create the new market, high market share gain is by default.
Okay. And currently, if you talk about value-added products as well, the portfolio comprises almost 60% of the total production. We are targeting to get it to almost 75%, right?
Yes.
So how much of it will be contributed due to the merger with Apollo Tricord Tubes, and how much will be standalone by Apollo Tubes?
So right now, this 60% is in addition with APL, is in addition with Tricord.
Okay.
Right. So when I'm saying from 60 to 75, 15% incremental will come from APL Apollo. Because we are consolidating Apollo Tricord because we own 57% stake. So it's line by line consolidation, right from the volume till EBITDA till PAT, and then the minority interest goes out. So the 60% is including 100% of Tricord.
Okay. And overall, with regards to where the merger is concerned right now, are we still standing on with the timeline of completing it by the third quarter of FY22?
I think plus minus 1 or 2 months because of this lockdown which happened. So exchanges, regulators, I mean, they were a bit slow. I guess it could be delay of like 1 to 2 months. That's it. But I think now the correct timeline would be to finish this within FY22. That's what it seems. But it's a plain vanilla merger, right? So there shouldn't be much of a challenge.
Correct. And overall, with regards to different segments of business where we are operating on, right now, at least commercial developments, housing, that comprises of almost 50 to 20% of the sales. Infrastructure alone is around 20%. Yes, the government is pushing infrastructure right now, but if you have to talk about housing, that's somewhere taking a hit currently. So do you think we will see any negative impact on that front?
So housing, see, last year also, the segment which did extremely well was housing. Okay, not urban, but more of rural housing, right? because we saw that how many migrant workers like shifted from urban centers back to their rural centers, right? And not only labor class, but also people working as consultants in accountancy firms, right? So
Mm,
everyone was operating from back from their homes, right? So when they went back to their homes, they had to renovate, right? When they knew that um, they have to stay here for like many months now, right? So a lot of new construction activity took place, right? So residential sales really did well for us, and and we knew that the rural economy would outperform urban economy in FY21 because 150 million working class population shifted, migrated back to their places, back to their residential places, right? So I think rural housing did really well, and our strategy worked also really well because we had revitalized our whole rural distribution network immediately after the lockdown was lifted, right? So,
mm,
so, so last year residential sales were really good for us. This year also, I mean commercial. So there is good demand coming from hospitals, oxygen plants, right, which
mm.
governments want to finish on immediate basis. Okay, then there is good uptake in the infrastructure projects also. That now
Mm.
that the government is done with distributing money, um, um, like packages, etc. That's like kind of over. Now they're focusing back again on the infrastructure projects, right? So I guess commercial and infra are doing well today, and residential once this now lockdown is being lifted, I think in next 2 to 3 months, residential should also pick up.
Okay. And overall, with the net working capital days as well, it's decreased to 8 days from 25 days. And a lot of companies have started following the cash and carry model. But do you think this is something which will be sustainable?
For us, it seems so. Yes, we are confident that it's very much sustainable in the long term
Hmm.
because we are not forcing our clients, our distributors, to pay on cash, right, on spot payment. So what we have made the whole transaction more favorable for them, right? So normally in India the trade practice is cash and like cash discount of 1%. So we increase the cash
Mhm.
discount from 1% to 2%, right? Because whatever savings we could do last year, we pass it on. Some of it we pass it on to our clients, right? So we increase the cash discount to 2%. On improving the cash discount to 2%, it it makes the transaction more favorable for the distributors to pay on cash, right? So it's not by force, it's by choice, it's by their choice, right? And then and then the other thing is that our distributors work on very low inventory levels
Hmm.
because we have like 10 plants across India. We are new to the end market. We have the mills which are based on Italian technology called DFT, direct forming technology, right? So the lead time from our factory to the distributors' warehouses is very low here, right? So our distributors have to keep very low inventory, right? Their churning is high. So when they're keeping low inventory, we
Hmm.
ask them to compensate it with like low receivables for us, right? So it's like more of give and take relationship. So these are the two main factors here, which makes us believe that it's not by force, right? If you're pushing someone, then there's a question mark whether it is sustainable or not in the longer term. But since they are opting it by choice, then we are sure that it's going to work in the long term, in sustainable manner.
Hmm. 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 Right. And overall, Anubhav, we've seen that for an APL, we've seen a lot of innovation that has come in. A lot of replacement of the conventional products that are being used is what APL Apollo is doing, and that's the strength the company has.
Yes.
From here on, what's the kind of market creation that we are looking at? And with these kind of replacements, what's the kind of R&D costs that we plan to incur?
Right. So there are three categories, broad-based categories, what we have um, carved out for the next 2 3 years. So one is heavy structural tubes, which are high diameter and high thickness in nature. Okay, and these
Hmm.
are going to be used in the heavy construction activity, whether it is a residential project or a commercial project or an infrastructure project, where we are promoting more and more usage of tubes in the structure, in the steel structure, right? So one trend is that the steel construction is picking up. Second trend is that within steel construction, we are promoting more and more tubular designs over conventional long steel designs. Okay, so we have so far we had the SKU range. We were producing tubes up till 300 by 300 diameter. right? So this year in Raipur, we're going to have a 500 by 500 square diameter tube, right? So that will really like enhance our SKU range, and it will give more flexibility to the structural consultants and designers to embed our products into their designs, right? We have seen that happening in US, Japan, Europe. We analyze a lot of our global peers, and there's a clear case that you use more tube, you make the design more optimal, you reduce the tonnage of the structure, and you reduce, ultimately you reduce the project cost. That's what everyone wants today, right? Optimal project costs, right? So if you are able to offer that with your product, you are in the game. So one is heavy structural diameter tubes, which we are focusing on. Second is color coated tubes. Again, it's a new product which we are working on, and first time in India. This is part of our home decor range. So, so in the lighter, in the light load bearing application, we have been replacing steel angles and channels. We have been replacing aluminium profiles. We have been replacing wooden structures. So color coated tube again will enhance our SKU range, and it will speed up the replacement of aluminium and wooden structures. Okay. Third is our rust-proof tubes, which is part of our Apollo Z series. These are zinc-coated tubes. So far, we are selling these products in the coastal markets, right? So we want to expand this portfolio in pan India, right? So whatever sales we are getting, almost 90% sales are coming from the coastal market, which is only 10% of India's population, but 90% of India is still to be explored, right? So we're going to push this rust-proof tubes, galvanized tubes, aggressively in the non-coastal markets in the rest of India, and we believe that there is a huge potential to create market for this product. So these three are the major categories we want to work on aggressively for the next 5 years, and if we are able to do that, so I mean our long-term goals of double-digit growth, sustainable growth should be achievable if we are able to work on these three products.
Right. So currently, what's the capacity utilization on a blended basis?
So we have total capacity of 2.6 million tons. We did 1.65 million ton volume last year. So this gives us 60% utilization levels.
And what's the kind of addition that we look at?
So color coated tubes and 500 by 500 square diameter tubes. We're going to add 200,000 ton each. So we will be 3.0 million ton by FY22.
Okay. And what's the kind of, costs that we are going to incur for this expansion, and how are we funding it?
Yeah, so it's all, so the total project cost will be around like our capex cost is around 8,000 to 10,000 rupees per ton. So the total cost will be around 300 to 400 crores, which is like 50% of our EBITDA, annual EBITDA. So this can be funded from internal cash flow. That's how we did.
Right. And currently, Anubhav, we've seen, if you see the net debt to equity as well, we've got it down substantially with a good amount of repayment that has happened in FY21. 0.1, again, it's a very comfortable number, but as a company, are we comfortable with this, or is the plan to get debt free?
Yeah, so we should be debt free. I mean, our debt as on March 20 balance sheet was 800 crores. And we closed FY21, March 21, with 160 crore of debt, right? This year, based on the operating cash flows, which remain very strong because the reduction in working capital is sustainable, right? So 8 days we perform almost 95% of my EBITDA would go into operating cash flows, right? So, so how we want to spend our operating cash flow is 25% goes into capex, 25% goes into dividend payment, 25% goes into tax payments, and 25% will go towards debt repayment plus cash surplus, right, within the books. So we should be debt free by March 23, March 22 here.
Okay. And very lastly, overall, if you have to look at the next milestone that you would want to cross in terms of top line and bottom line growth, or maybe in terms of market share or a percentage of value added products, what would the next milestone look like?
So our 5-year goal is 4 million ton of sales volume with 5,000 rupees per ton of EBITDA spread. That's what we are looking at.
Right. All right, Anubhav. Thank you so much for speaking to us at Nirmal Bang. Always a pleasure to have you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. Thank you. Stay safe and speak to you soon again.
Thanks, Hiral. Pleasure.